My name is Adrien Schmidt. I am the CEO and co-founder of Bouquet.ai, and I am an outlier.
Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Adrien Schmidt. He is the CEO of Bouquet. Adrien, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ever. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you on the show for a million different reasons. There are a lot of things that you've done that we kind of want to get into and introduce you to our audience. But you being highly recommended by somebody who's been on our show before, Cynthia Johnson, is obviously a big plus. So again, welcome. We're looking forward to having you.
Likewise, really happy to be here.
Now, let's kind of paint the picture for our audience real quick. You're from France. You've spent time in California. You've spent some time in China. We're going to get into all of that here in just a bit, but right now, first question off the bat, what's the community like in San Francisco versus France versus China? The good, the bad, and the ugly of maybe all three.
Yeah. I mean, people know a lot about the community in San Francisco as being really a great place for entrepreneurs to get great ideas, to meet amazing people, and to get capital. And that's true. I want to add to that compared to what I've seen elsewhere, and especially in China. I was part of a network of entrepreneurs in China as well. I spent 2.5 years there between 2006 and 2008, as part of my previous experience with a company, Squid Solutions. And what struck me there was that I got there as a French entrepreneur, and people in that community were kind of avoiding each other. The cool thing was to hang out with local Chinese folks, and that's great, right? That's fine. But, sometimes working together as a community is also something very nice, because you get somewhere, you kind of need introductions, you need help, you need people to tell you how things work and just, give you a little bit of boost. And that's what I found over here in San Francisco. I mean, you get here and literally people say, hey, welcome, how can I help? And immediately you've got this network that's being built, day after day, and that goes extremely fast. So it can seem a little bit overwhelming. You get to San Francisco, there's so many different companies, so many entrepreneurs, so many accelerator programs. But hey, you could just get started really, really fast because you get so much help and such a great welcome.
And so for the foreseeable future, San Francisco for you right now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the business, it's been really, really awesome. We were just at Dreamforce last week, so the major conference from Salesforce. Yep. I mean, there was 170,000 people who came to the city to attend this event, right? And we had a booth, we sponsored, we got our ideas out of the door, got immediate feedback. And this kind of thing happens, in San Francisco. You don't have to go somewhere else. It's right in your backyard, So that was awesome.
It's almost like the mecca of entrepreneurship, right? I mean, if you're going to try to go do something cool, being in San Francisco can't be wrong for the most part. Other than maybe the high housing costs. Other than that, tons and tons of talent and the community, right, with the events and being able to being open with helping each other. That's a big plus. So congratulations, and we're glad that you're close by. We're going to definitely have to make invites to have you down in San Francisco to St. George, where we're from, to kind of interact with our audience down here as well in person. I
would love to come.
We do this a few times a year, so you're on our short list for sure. Now, can't wait. Let's get right into it, right? And work our way backwards. So let's talk about what you're working on now, which is Bouquet. What is it? How does it work?
All right. So Bouquet is a company that provides Aristotle. Aristotle is your personal AI analyst. So some one or so, a bot basically that you could chat with at any time or day or night to get answers to your questions about your data. And, I've been in data for years. I basically did all my career almost in data. Started off in 2002 working for telecoms, and basically, helping business people use data has pretty much been what I've been doing for the past 15 years. So what we see is that a business user, and especially if you think about a sales executive or a sales manager or someone that's in operations, right? Well, they always get all these dashboards and their reports, and that's fine. But if you're preparing a meeting or you're just about to meet a customer, you're going to call someone up and you're going to say, hey, I need information about, why this product, its usage has been going down, or why is this margin not as high as it should, or why has revenue jumped 20% in the last quarter? And if, you're going to wait for someone to answer that question. And if it's a Friday night at 5 p.m., you might wait until next Monday, right? and so we were like, well, we need to find a way to solve that because these folks don't have time to go and drill into dashboards and reports to find it out themselves. They need help. And that's where an AI chatbot really comes into play, because you can ask questions in your own language to an AI chatbot. So you could just verbalize it in English, in writing or orally, verbally, and get an answer. And then engage in a dialogue which helps you uncover what you're actually looking for. It's also, it's also really hard to know exactly what question to ask. It's not like you can say, I want this precise number, because then, okay, you want this number, but is it for all customers, or is it just for customers in a certain area, or customers that have been with you for a long time? Is it for all products or just a subset of them? There are just so many parameters, and that's what a dialogue with a bot can help you solve. You start the conversation, you get an answer, you drill down, you say, okay, how about this part? You get an answer, you can say, no, not that. You get another answer, and through maybe 20, 30, back and forth messages, you eventually get to something that's exactly what you need, and that takes you 3 to 5 minutes,
How long have you been working on this?
Yeah, I've been working on this the chatbot part is really recent. We've been on this for about 6 months, but it's actually built on analytics technology that I've been working on for years. It's been in production for about 2 or 3 years. And before that, we've been, researching ways to improve it since 2010.
Yeah, when we were doing research on obviously you and what you're doing, in the beginning, I thought that this was more for enterprise clients, right? Those that have big data that need this kind of work. But it sounds like just the solopreneur can benefit from this as well now, right?
Yeah, and so exactly, because everybody has data that's locked into a system. We all use systems that have data. So even a solopreneur can use that. But I would go even further. If you think about consumers, right? So different use cases, right? You're a consumer and you're using a personal finance app, or you want to check out your investments. Some things are pretty hard to do. If you want to say, okay, how is this particular stock, I don't know, Apple, what's it been doing in the past 3 months? How much did I buy mine? What is my immediate benefit? And can I put an alert or can I even automatically sell if it reaches this price? Well, if you do that with, using an interface or a mobile app, you're going to check 3 or 4 times that you really got this right. And it's going to take you a little bit of time. If you can just ask those simple questions and get answers, and I think you can really benefit from that, from the help of a chatbot. From a citizen point of view, think about all this open data that is on these open government websites or open city websites. From all this open data, it's accessible through APIs. Okay, so that's really going to help the common citizen, right, to access it, or it's available by downloading a raw set of data, but that's really hard to consume as well.
Sure.
Imagine you could just ask a question and say, hey, how much has the county been spending on this infrastructure project? you know, and how much are they being paid for to do that, and where, how much does that relate to, I mean, how does that relate to education and health, and so even citizens could access data in ways that could help them make very important decisions for their lives, if only it was just at their fingertip and they could access it in natural language. And so I think, that's what a chatbot can help solve. And I see it with a very big future.
And so now that you're focusing on chatbots a little bit more, we've heard about it for a little while now, but it's still very, very new. Who's the competition? I mean, others are popping up here and there, working on some sort of chatbot type of program as well. How do you guys stand apart from these guys?
Yeah, so a lot of the chatbots that we see today are for customer service, right? So you have questions about how to use a product or status of your account or that kind of stuff. And some really good chatbots are out there to help answer those questions and basically, offload the customer service reps. And that's great, right? But that's like the number one use case today. In our specific space, which is analytics, right? Business intelligence, accessing data. We see companies, I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world, like IBM or others or Microsoft, addressing the space as well. But they do it a little bit differently. It's search-based. So you have this dashboard, and actually dashboards have become so complicated that to find a piece of information in there, they added natural language search, right? And so that's a good way to do it. But we think that the thing is not, the goal of our chatbot is not to replace a dashboard or put in a new search feature in a dashboard. It's actually to provide an AI analyst. It's someone that you can chat with. And the way they talk to their analysts today is through a chat service. They message them literally. I mean, we have one of our earlier adopters here who was saying, you know what, I was looking for this information the other day and I exchanged 200 Slack messages with someone in my analytics team to help me uncover what I was looking at. And so that's how people really work today. And this can be, this is exactly how you talk to a chatbot. Same messages, same interface, same language, except it's someone or something that's always on, that answers in less than a second, and that's always very patient when you ask stupid questions, which we all ask, right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I like that. It kind of, I'm very fascinated by it, right? Because it's going to make my life easier in business and possibly other things with chatbots or just AI in general. But also, it also kind of scares me a little bit as well. I mean, this is the beginning phases of all of this stuff. I mean, some of my concerns are, what is this going to look like in 20, 30 years, right? I mean, are a lot of people going to be losing their jobs because of what we're developing? Are our lives going to be made easier, but also, weirdly complicated because of it? Where is this going to, where are we going to end up? I mean, what is it going to look like in 20 years, in your opinion, because of all of this new innovation, especially with chatbots and but especially AI?
yeah. I mean, it's a major technology breakthrough, and like every single major technology breakthrough for the past 300 years, it has generated the same concerns. I mean, if you look at France in the 1700s, when they started introducing some sorts of early machines to weave cloth, the initial workers there actually went on strike and broke the machines, and that was in, I mean, I don't know exactly the date, but it was around 1750 or something, right? Maybe even earlier than that. Why? Because technology changes the way people work. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to take people's jobs away from them. It could actually make people work differently, but probably focus on more higher added value tasks, right? Maybe make actually their lives easier. Now, AI is a little bit different because I think we all grew up watching Terminator, basically.
For sure.
So we could just imagine machines taking over the world. I mean, we saw the Matrix, we saw all this kind of stuff, and it's pretty freaky,
And now, is that a legit concern, or is the population that somewhat don't know as much as somebody like you that's kind of in it every single day? Is it something that we should not be worried about, or is that a concern that's that we should be talking about?
Well, so I definitely think that it's a concern that we should be talking about. I mean, if you think about the fact that machines can now recognize faces in a very, very, precise way. Obviously, the iPhone 10, for example, just came out and does that. I don't know if you've tried it, but even if you take your face and you kind of put sunglasses or change a little bit or do a weird kind of face, maybe you won't, you won't be, you'll be selected, whereas, your neighbor won't, right? So face recognition and all that kind of technology is really out there. And you could think of some really, really wicked minds, making, automated killing machines and stuff. I mean, that's the really freaky part of it, right? So, and it does sound possible to do that. I would rather look at a brighter future, kind of in the way that, I don't know, have you read Asimov and the robots and stuff?
No, not yet.
It's pretty cool because when they build robots, what they do is they immediately code in like the 3 laws of robotics, which basically prevent robots from harming humans.
Nice.
And that is, embedded inside the DNA or the code or whatever, the EEPROM or whatever they use for robots. And yeah, that definitely is the way that we should all see this is, okay, this is a technology that could be awesome, but it has to be applied for good, right? And so I do share a legitimate concern that some people might want to use it for, other means.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of joke a little bit about my concern. I mean, there is some concern there, but I think, and this was last year, maybe I can't remember exactly when Facebook had those bots that were kind of learning how to negotiate or were negotiating amongst themselves, and then what did they do? They created their own language that only they can understand, and then I was like, oh, here we go. This is this is the beginning. Now they're going to be talking, and we're not going to know what they're saying. And so now, 5 years later, we're all dead. But
and Google had something like that actually, pretty cool too, right? In their translation programs, so they put AI to power Google Translate, which works pretty amazingly well now. And they had trained the AI, I think, on a set of languages and then a completely different set of languages, and they found out that the translation program could actually work between 2 languages that had never been trained with one another because it used a third self-programmed intermediate language, right? So that's kind of the same thing. I thought that was pretty awesome, actually.
It is pretty awesome. Good. It's just one of those things, right? I mean, there's you guys are disrupting the way things have been for a long time, and sometimes I'm assuming it's not always going to be pretty and it's not always going to be easy, but if we want to continue to grow and evolve, then we're going to have to take some of these risks. So congratulations to you for all of that you've done. Now, let's get back into your what you guys are working on and you personally, right? You're the CEO of the company, but what are you the best at? I mean, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to help the company run and grow?
Yeah, so I mean that's a great question because it really depends on first of all the stage of the company, and even within the stage of the company, the short-term and medium-term goals, right? So as a CEO, I have to make sure that the company. I mean, my primary goal is to make the company grow, and that starts with, first of all, having something cool to show people, right? Something that people will actually want to use and can find applications for. So 6 months ago, we had this pretty powerful piece of technology for analytics, and it was being applied in various ways. Basically, it was this kind of API, this piece of technology that anybody could use and embed into their own product to build their own stuff. So if you wanted to have if you were an IoT company and you wanted to report usage of your devices to your customers, then you could embed our technology and it handled all the complicated stuff about analytics. But then I thought, okay, why don't we? You could choose whichever one. Why don't we eat our own dog food or drink our own wine? Basically, why don't we use that stuff ourselves and actually put a bot on top of that and actually see what happens there? Because there's all this talk about AI. These are all the examples. Maybe it could work. So at that stage, I was really, really looking into the product, right? How is this going to work? What's the experience? I was, typing in messages all day long, looking at responses and trying to figure out what does it mean to have a conversation about analytics with a bot, right? Then you move on to other steps. You're like, okay, this is cool. Now, who should I show this to in terms of early adopters, early customers to get some kind of validation? And at the same time, who should I show this to in terms of investors, and get their opinion and maybe, put them in a pipeline to actually fund this particular piece of software and this go to market, right? And then gradually, you get into, okay, I get some really good responses from this early adopters and I am generating interest from investors. Now I need to scale this up, one notch. So how do you start building marketing material and then engaging in early stage sales, right? So then you start moving away from the product and going more into, okay, marketing and sales. So that also means that you have to start scaling the company a little bit, right? Because you have to start focusing on, the engineering has to go on and you have to focus on sales. And then you do something, sales start picking up and you start getting hundreds of leads. Now, how do you process that? So you need to build a sales organization. And at the same time, well, this costs a lot of money. So you better, you better have already talked to your investors and start getting additional money into the company because, customers are not going to pay upfront immediately, a week later, right? Yeah. So then you move on to investment. And basically, I think the role of a CEO in that sense is really to adapt to the situation of the company and to the needs of the people that you are fortunate enough to have, willing to work with you on your project.
And so you're wearing many hats, right? And a lot of different things that you have to focus on. Again, like you mentioned, depending on where you are in the journey. Which part of that do you enjoy the most? The building, the creating the sales, the engineer. What part of that whole thing do you either enjoy the most or are the best at?
Well, the thing that definitely gives me the biggest high, pretty much, is talking to customers and users. When you have someone who tries it and says, this is very cool, and then shows it to other people in the company, I don't think it gets any better than that. Because you're like, okay, I'm doing something that matters, right? And people like it, and then people pay for it, right? So that's definitely for me the part that I like the most. I love the product part as well because it's great to be hands on the product. But if I really had to think about what gives me the biggest piece of adrenaline is really those, basically closing a sale and getting a happy user and then putting them on a video and talking to, that being with customers, nothing beats being with customers.
I agree. That's cool. Very good. Now, it sounds like right now you're in a good position, right? You're kind of humming along, doing exactly what you are planning, what you've planned to do strategically and all that good stuff. But there must have been some either challenges or setbacks early on. What were they, and how'd you come through it?
Oh man, I've basically had a company or been running, companies for the past 10 years, and seriously, I've been through all sorts of setbacks and transitions. So, let me tell you about the latest one. Okay, it was actually right before switching into the bot space. Mm-hmm. So we had, we put a ton of money, a ton of our own money actually, because we had a pretty good services activity. And we were, generating some profits. And so we had this kind of war chest here that we invested in building this API-based analytics product, right? And we were like, okay, we're going to do the same thing as Stripe or Twilio, right? Which is basically to provide this empowering technology that, thousands of people are going to build products on, and it's all going to go really smoothly. And when we were talking to investors about this part, they were like, yeah, it's a cool idea, but, it costs a lot of money to do that. And we were like, yeah, but we have a good track record here, and we feel pretty confident and stuff. And actually, they were right in the sense that we were not ready actually, and we still had some flaws in the product that prevented people from having a really smooth experience. And that was not just bugs, but that was documentation, that was explaining what it does, that was providing use cases. And it turned out that, at some point I was like, okay, we're not going to make it. We're going to run out of money. If we keep on investing this much of our own money, we're not generating a lot of interest from investors who are forecasting, that we're going to have to spend, millions and millions of dollars on this thing. What are we going to do? How do we get out of this situation? And what, we've almost put everything into this. We believed in it so much. Now we're going to run out of cash. I mean, hey, this is getting serious. We've been alive for all these years, but now, whoa, we jeopardize all this stuff. And that's when you better be with good people around you, that actually you can talk to and get ideas from. And I'm, very fortunate to have an amazing partner here. A guy called Marios Anapliotis, who is with me here in San Francisco, and by hours and hours of conversations together and with people and getting feedback, and then that's how we got to this new opportunity of not just building the bot, but positioning it and building it and rolling it out and doing this, and this completely changed the course of the company. So yeah. You could go through pretty hard, pretty tough spots, and best thing to do is to have the best people you can around you to help you steer out of that. The things don't come from just one individual. Having the right partner or partners is super important. And I think if you're starting a company, the people who are around you at that time matter in ways that you probably can't imagine at the beginning, but that's you're going to run into trouble. And if you don't have the right people around you, your company's going to die.
I love how easily you could have panicked and they could have gone, you could have screwed it up and kind of even shut the company down because of it. But I like what you said, the people around you, right? Whether it's your co-founder, the actual team, or just advisors or mentors around you. It's so important as entrepreneurs that we need to kind of build our own little, truly our own little board of advisors. Again, whether it's actual employees or co-founders or just mentors, we need to kind of reach out to these guys a little bit more. And I think sometimes we put our heads down, right? And we're stubborn and we're like, hey, no matter what, I'm gonna fight through this. And I'm going to do it by myself, and it's going to be all right because I have willpower, all that stuff. But sometimes, man, we need to stop and slow down and talk to people around us. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. Congratulations.
Yeah, I think there's a word that really made a difference for me. I mean, just to give you a little bit of context, even my CTO bailed out on me, right? And he's like, okay, I'm done with this thing. And I was like, whoa, wait, you know everything about the technology. So it was pretty scary, but there's a word here that I found to be really important is help. Ask for help, because that's what you need at that moment. And if you're open about it, you're gonna get help. Yeah. People are gonna help you. They really are. They have a network. They have been through a similar situation. They can give an advice. They could put you in touch with someone else. I mean, help is out there, and a lot of people actually are willing to help. And if you look at your network, and actually probably everybody in there can help you in a way. And so what you got to do is say, hey, I'm in trouble here. I need help. Can you help? And if
Yeah,
you're humble about it, you're going to get it.
for sure. And I'm sure it's true with you, the same as it's true with me. If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I have this problem. Can we talk through it, or what do you suggest? What do you advise?" I think for the most part, I would be open and be like, "Yeah, this. Talk to my guy here. Talk to my friend there." And yet, we feel awkward and weird doing the same thing when we're the ones that need the help. When most people are going to do exactly what you and I would do, which is help, but yet we have a hard time asking for that help, and that's strange that we do that.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah. I don't know.
I
I
don't get
mean,
it.
maybe it's kind of like, when you think about getting, or, offering, or, buying a present, or getting a present, right? And sometimes it's hard to receive a present in the appropriate way, right? You always feel good when okay, here's a present. Now I bought you this, and you feel super good because you're making this great present to someone. And that's pretty natural, right? When you buy something cool and you give it to someone, then you feel good about it, right? But if you think about it, it's almost as important, if not more important, to know how to accept a present.
Agreed.
Someone gives you something cool, you got to say, man, this is really awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. Let's use it together or something. I mean, I don't know, but it's really you make people happy by accepting that they could do something for you.
Agreed. It's not to focus too much on this, but for a long time, when somebody said, "Hey, let's go chat and let me buy you lunch or dinner," I would never let them buy me lunch or dinner. Right? I would always pay, even though they were the ones
Exactly.
asking. But after a while, I'm like, obviously, I can afford it. Obviously, for the most part, I think this guy can afford the lunch or the dinner. And if they're offering, I stopped kind of going back and forth, saying, "No, let me do it." It goes on for a couple minutes, but now, if they offer, I'm like, yeah, sure. It's not weird, and they want to do it, and I think they kind of want to contribute a little bit. And so, yes, absolutely. But anyway, it's
I'm
one of
with you.
those weird things
Yeah.
about humans. So now let's as we start to kind of wrap up here a little bit, let's talk about you. So, born in France, grew up in California, right? You were in China, all over the place, but um, with the travel and living in these different communities, um, did that prepare you to be an entrepreneur? What was it? Your parents? Did you learn it in college? I mean, why are you the way you are right now? What was the biggest impact as you were growing up?
Well, I mean, I was almost, I think, almost engineered to be an entrepreneur, to be honest with you. I mean, the so it was in France, but I graduated during the internet, the first internet bubble, right? That's when people all over the world learned about startups, and how companies. I remember, seeing for the first time the name Yahoo, and I was like, whoa, there are companies that are called Yahoo with an exclamation point, what the hell is that? I mean, I know companies that are called General Electric and Pfizer, and things that sound super super serious and important. And now you have this thing that's changing the world, and it's called Yahoo.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell? But even before that, my dad was he's retired now. He was one of the earliest VCs in France, right? And that's actually why we moved here when I was a kid, right? Is he was sent over to do this job over here in the 80s, and then came back. And I've heard of technology companies and startups and funding and all that kind of stuff. It's since really really early on, and it's always been pretty natural to be working in a small company, right? In something that's really tiny, and to believe that these new startups were actually designed to make things better. And so it came out as being very natural. And then when I grew up, so I saw this first internet revolution. I also saw a lot of the crisis. I was in a startup in 2000, 2001. It was fantastic. It was in Boston. It was one of the best teams that I mean, definitely the best team I've ever seen. Getting huge traction, making amazing. I mean, I don't know. I started off, I was maybe in my, I don't know, I was 22 or 23. They put me on a patent application. I mean, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then the internet bubble crashed, and I saw this company spiral downhill because they were just not getting the money they needed to keep on growing, right? And it was due to the market conditions that weren't there. I mean, we were getting tremendous traction. We were doing great, but the money just wasn't there anymore. So I saw that. Then I joined another kind of startup, and then I got through the telecom bubble, right? Because I was focusing on telecom at the time, and also saw the telecom bubble crash. And so, I mean, you got to be prepared to factors that are not necessarily of your making intervening with your life and your company and that kind of thing, right? So that you got to be resilient, basically. And if you talked about travel and traveling, and I think that you can see amazing examples of what it really means in real life to be resilient when you go to a lot of those areas where developing countries and developing areas. I mean, I saw them all over the place in China. I did a lot of traveling there, did a lot of traveling in Southeast Asia and India. And you see what it really means to be resilient, right? To be in tough conditions and to weather them out and to survive through them, and even hopefully for more and more people to actually thrive through them and make a better living for your family. So I think that's also what an entrepreneur is to be resilient and to go through conditions that are not necessarily of your making. You can do everything right, but if the market crashes, then well, you're either you make it or you don't. But it's going to be harder, right? And being resilient is actually finding your way through that.
I love how, because of the cool things you're working on now, your experience, the highs and the lows of just entrepreneurship in general and life in general, right? A lot of my audience members, I think, can resonate and connect with your story. It feels like you're right there in the trenches with us, right? Your journey's not over, right? By a long shot, it doesn't sound like, right? You're still fighting to innovate or to grow your company. And again, I think that because of the things that you've talked about, a lot of our audience can kind of relate. And so I love that. And so when we have you back on the show in 3 years, what are we going to be talking about with you?
Well, I'm not sure I see myself as this big corporate guy, so, I mean, if hopefully, this company will really take off and have a lot of people working through it and become more and more corporate like. If that's the case, I might actually be finding new applications for the same company, or working on different projects. Or I think I kind of always want to be in a position of instability.
Most people would run away from that. Here you are saying the exact opposite. I love that, because I know how you feel. I absolutely love that. That's cool. So you want to be creating, you want to be building, you don't want to be the fat cat, just not growing anymore, not progressing anymore. I hear you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, when there's a risk to a situation, that's when you start actually thinking about ways to mitigate that risk, and ways to get away from a tough spot. That's when you really start thinking of out of the box, pretty much, right? So it's pretty fascinating. I also, when I think about that, it's I don't know. I have two kids, right, and they're grown up, and it's really hard if you think about it when you're a kid that you land in this world where you got to learn everything. You got to learn about yourself. You got to learn about everybody else. And so, they're having a tough time going through that. I mean, even though I, try to make it easy as easy as I can for them, but still, it's really hard if what they see is, a fat cat coming home and just, sleuthing on the couch. I mean, I'm not sure I really want to project that image either. So until they grow up, basically, I kind of want to be in showing that you got to fight for it, you got to struggle, you got to find your way out of it, and that's I think that's part of who I am and who I kind of want them to be too.
That's funny. This can be an entirely different episode, but let's get into it here for just a sec. I completely agree. Right? I feel like most of us, maybe not most of us, a lot of us kind of grew up struggling with something, whether it was poverty or a broken home or all that stuff. And, we kind of fought through it. And I know in my situation, I'm providing a level of comfort and wealth to my kids that I didn't have, right? So I grew up lean and hungry and like motivated to like prove the world wrong, all that good stuff, right? And then now I'm afraid, and maybe you can jump in here in just a sec. I'm afraid of raising like soft kids. Not that there's anything like, tremendously wrong with that, but how do we instill that fire and that fight in them when they're living pretty comfortable lives, right? For the most part.
Yeah, well, I think there's there's an answer to that, right? Which is that, good is not an absolute thing, right? And you can't just reach a level of good that is acceptable to everybody, right? So whether you are in a really tough situation and you want to improve it, or whether you're in a good situation but you still want to improve it, and that doesn't have to be materially, right? That doesn't have to be I want to have more TVs or I want to have a better car, but it could be okay, I have this material stuff, now I just have to be a better person, right? And I have to be able to well, first of all, be more educated on a lot of things, but also then maybe be in a position to better contribute to make other people lives better and stuff. So, whatever situation you're in, whether you live in a whether you grow up lean or not, and whether you actually provide comfort to your kids, they still have so much to do to be, great people and to have an impact on the world that, they're going to have a lot of work anyways, right?
That is true, man. I love it. Again, it sounds like you're working on some cool things. You're obviously open to discussing your story and the struggles and obviously the successes that you're having as well. So those that are listening, they want to connect with you, learn more about the company. Where can we find you online?
Yeah, well, come on. I'm really happy to talk about all that and to learn from other people's own experiences and maybe ideas also about growing. Yeah, so really happy to connect with folks on a personal and on a business level. So our company's website is bouquet.ai, BOUQUET.ai. On Twitter, it's at Open Bouquet. And I'm on Twitter at A_SCHM. And really happy to connect. My email is Adrien, ADRIEN at bouquet.ai, and spelled the French way, since that's where my family's from. Yeah.
I love it. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review it, share with your friends. But there we're going to have a show notes page, links to Adrien's websites, social media accounts. Obviously, he's the real deal. You heard it here. Connect with him, reach out to him, and just kind of follow him. He's doing some cool things, and no doubt that we're going to be hearing a lot more from him in the near future. So, Adrien, this has been fun. This has been very entertaining but very valuable as well with your experiences and the knowledge that you just kind of brought to this episode. So again, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, Ever. It was great. I love your questions. Love being on the show. I'll really look forward to listening to the other episodes that are coming up.
I love it. So Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.